I still remember the day I walked through that front door, not knowing that everything I built was about to collapse. The house smelled like lemon-scented cleaner. The sun was shining through the windows, making the place look peaceful. It was a lie. That house wasn't my home anymore. Not really. Emily sat at the dining table, her posture unnaturally stiff, like she had rehearsed something all morning. The air was heavy. My heart sank before she even said a word. "Hey, honey," I greeted, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't respond with her usual smile. Instead, she looked at me coldly, detached. "Sit down, Daniel. We need to talk," she said flatly. I pulled the chair back, my stomach tightening. Her voice lacked any warmth. We had been married for 14 years. We built a life together. At least I thought we did. She slid a thick envelope across the table toward me. "What's this?" "Divorce papers," she answered, like she was reading a weather report. "It's done, Daniel. I want you to leave the house immediately." I couldn't speak for a few seconds. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "Emily, what are you talking about?" My voice cracked slightly. She took a deep breath, almost annoyed that I didn't just accept it instantly. "Things have changed. I don't love you anymore. It's over." "But why? What happened?" I asked, my hand shaking slightly. Her eyes hardened. "I don't owe you an explanation." I glanced down at the papers. Her attorney's name was on it, some big downtown firm that specialized in high-net-worth divorces. The terms were brutal. I was being asked to leave immediately, give up my claim to the house, and waive spousal support. She even demanded full ownership of our joint investments. I was still trying to process it when she delivered the second blow. "My uncle died last month," she said, voice flat. "I inherited his entire estate." I blinked. I thought he was leaving it all to charity. "Plans changed," she shrugged. "It's over $10 million. I don't need you anymore, Daniel." The words cut deeper than any knife could. For years, we'd struggled together. We both worked long hours to pay the mortgage. I sacrificed promotions to stay close when her mother got sick. We talked about retirement like it was some shared dream. But now, she didn't even have the decency to have a conversation. She'd simply waited for the money to come in before discarding me like old furniture. I sat there staring at her, trying to recognize the woman I had married. But all I saw was a stranger. "Emily, is there someone else?" I asked quietly. Her face twitched for a fraction of a second, a slight nervous blink, but she quickly recovered. "Don't be ridiculous." But I knew her too well. That small hesitation planted the first seed of doubt in my mind. She stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. "You have 48 hours to leave. My lawyer will handle the rest." I sat there, numb, as she walked out of the room. That night, I barely slept. My mind was spinning. How'd we get here? What did I go wrong? Was I so blind that I couldn't see this coming? The next morning, I made some calls to a friend of mine, Ethan, who worked in private investigations. I didn't want to believe Emily was hiding something, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this. Ethan agreed to look into her recent activities discreetly. By the third day, I packed a few of my things and left the house. As I shut the door behind me, it felt like I was leaving behind not just my home, but my entire identity. I moved into a small apartment across town. It was cold, empty, and smelled like old carpet. But at least it was mine. 2 weeks later, Ethan called. "Dan, we need to meet," he said. His voice was serious. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. He slid a manila folder across the table. "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding. Ethan leaned forward. "Emily's been seeing someone for the past 8 months. His name is Marcus Reed. He's her financial advisor, the same guy who helped her handle the inheritance." I stared at the photos inside the folder. Emily and Marcus, having dinner, walking out of hotels together, smiling like they were in some romantic movie. My stomach twisted. The betrayal was deeper than I ever imagined. But that wasn't all. "There's something else," Ethan said grimly. I pulled some financial records. Marcus has been involved in multiple lawsuits in the past for fraud, asset mismanagement, even elder abuse. I blinked, stunned. "You're saying he targeted her?" Ethan nodded. "I think he groomed her for this. He saw the inheritance coming. He's using her." I sat there, fists clenched. A strange mixture of anger and sorrow surged through me. Emily didn't just betray me. She was being manipulated too. But did she even care? I wasn't sure whether I was more furious at her or at myself for not seeing it sooner. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I leaned back in my chair and looked Ethan in the eye. Can you keep digging? Ethan nodded. Absolutely. I needed the truth, all of it, because something told me this rabbit hole went even deeper. The days after Ethan handed me that folder were some of the darkest of my life. The images of Emily with Marcus were burned into my mind like scars. 14 years of marriage, wiped away like they never mattered. But beneath the heartbreak, something colder was taking root. Clarity. I wasn't dealing with just a broken marriage. I was dealing with something calculated, manipulated. I spent hours staring at the financial records Ethan pulled. The inheritance hadn't even fully cleared probate yet, but Marcus had already convinced Emily to move most of the funds into a series of private investment vehicles. High risk, low transparency. The kind of shady financial engineering that smelled like a disaster waiting to happen. Ethan's voice echoed in my mind. He's grooming her. He saw that money coming a long time ago. And Emily, blinded by wealth, freedom, and maybe her own pride, was falling right into it. 2 weeks later, Ethan called again. This time, his voice was tense. Dan, I found something. We met in his office. He closed the blinds as soon as I walked in. That alone set my pulse racing. He pulled up a file on his laptop. Marcus Reed's real name is Marcus Reed Elson. He changed it after his last legal trouble 5 years ago in Nevada. He was investigated for draining the accounts of an elderly widow after gaining her trust. She died broke. Her family tried to sue but couldn't find half the money. He vanished before they could pin him. I sat there fist tight, and now he's doing it again with Emily. Ethan nodded gravely. That's exactly what I think. The room felt smaller. My breathing grew heavy. But inside, something else burned now. A quiet rage. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was destruction. I couldn't believe Emily had fallen for a man like him. But maybe that's what she wanted. A new life. No Thais. No obligations. And me? I was the disposable one. A few days later, I got a text from Emily's attorney. Please finalize signing the divorce terms as soon as possible. Delays may result in legal action. Legal action. From my own house. For marriage, I devoted my life to. I stared at that message for a long time. But I wasn't going to let Marcus walk away with everything. Not without a fight. And not while Emily was being blindfolded by greed and manipulation. That night, I made a decision. Ethan, I said over the phone, I want to know everything. I want to know who Marcus deals with, where the money is going, what accounts they're using. I need leverage. Ethan hesitated. Dan, that kind of digging could cross some lines. Then cross them, I said firmly. He's taking everything. There was a long pause before Ethan finally replied. All right, I'll call in a few favors. The next few weeks passed slowly. My life felt like it was frozen. The apartment became smaller every night. The walls felt like they were closing in. Meanwhile, Emily paraded around town with Marcus on her arm, as if nothing had happened. The worst part? She didn't even try to hide it. I heard through mutual friends that she had already put the house on the market. She bought herself a new Mercedes, expensive jewelry, designer clothes. The woman I once knew was gone, replaced by someone drunk on sudden wealth and freedom. She had cut me out completely, but I wasn't going to disappear. Then Ethan called. I have something. You might want to sit down for this. We met late that night. His eyes were bloodshot from hours of digging. He pulled out several printed statements. Marcus has been funneling money into offshore shell companies. Some under his name, some under fake corporations. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of the transfers are from Emily's accounts, without her formal authorization. I blinked. Wait, she doesn't even know? No, he's moving money behind her back. It started small, a few thousand here, tens of thousands there. But last month, he moved nearly $1.2 million offshore. The room spun. So she thinks she's in control. I whispered, realization hitting me like a brick. But she's not. Ethan nodded grimly. She's being played. And if he drains her accounts, she'll be the one left holding the bag legally. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of Ethan's desk. Can we prove it? We're close, Ethan said. But I need access to more. Her personal files, financial records, passwords. That's when the most dangerous idea entered my mind. I still know her security questions, I said. I help her set up every single one. Ethan hesitated. Dan, that's risky. I don't care, I said coldly. We have one chance. The next night, while Emily was out, likely with Marcus, I drove back to the house I once called home. My name was still on some of the property records, even if she pretended otherwise. The alarm code hadn't changed. As I stood in front of that door, key in hand, my heart pounded like a war drum. Every voice inside me screamed that this could backfire. But I also knew, if I didn't act now, she'd lose everything. I slipped inside quietly, heart racing. The house was eerily silent. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, glowing softly in the dark. This was my only shot. The house felt like a ghost of my old life. Every photo on the wall, every candle on the counter, reminders of what used to be ours. But none of it belonged to me anymore. I slipped into the kitchen and approached her laptop. My hands trembled slightly as I woke the screen. Thankfully, Emily was never one for complicated passwords. I answered the security questions one by one. Our wedding date, her first dog's name, the city where she was born. I was in. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened her financial folders. She had multiple new accounts, brokerage accounts, private investments, high-yield foreign funds. And there it was, the trail Marcus had laid out for her. I clicked through every document Ethan would need. Account numbers, wire transfers, contract signings, all neatly organized. But the more I dug, the worse it got. Marcus wasn't just stealing from her. He was preparing to vanish. There were scheduled transfers for the next several weeks, each larger than the last. The final one would empty nearly 70% of her inheritance into offshore holdings in the Cayman Islands, registered under a fake real estate development company. After that, he'd disappear, and she'd be left penniless, with no legal recourse. She didn't even realize she was his mark. I copied every file onto an encrypted drive and slipped it into my pocket. As I was about to shut the laptop, something caught my eye, an email thread. It was between Emily and Marcus. The words made my blood run cold. Marcus, we'll be rid of him soon. The papers are ironclad. Once the final transfer clears, we'll have our fresh start. No more looking over our shoulder. Emily, he's stubborn, but he'll fold. He always does. Marcus, good. Once this is done, you'll never have to see him again. Emily, I can't wait, baby. We deserve this. The betrayal felt like a second knife twisting inside me. She wasn't just manipulated. She was an accomplice. Willingly. My stomach flipped. My breathing grew shallow. The Emily I once loved, the woman I married, was gone long before I even saw the signs. Suddenly, I heard a sound. The garage door. My pulse spiked. They were home. I closed the laptop, wiped the fingerprints, and crept toward the back door. The car engine shut off. I heard their voices. Laughter. I slipped out the back just as the door opened. For a moment, I stood hidden in the shadows, listening. Marcus, you're sure everything's ready? Emily asked, her voice soft and sweet. By next Friday, it's all done, Marcus replied confidently. Then we fly out. He won't even know until we're gone. Emily giggled. Good. He was always so small-minded. I want a new life. With you. Their words felt like acid burning through my veins. I left silently, my hands trembling, but my mind clearer than it had been in weeks. The next morning, I met Ethan at his office. I have everything, I said, sliding in the drive. He reviewed the files, his eyes wide as the evidence unfolded. This is bad, he whispered. Really bad. You could bury both of them with this. That's not enough, I said, my voice low and steady. I want them exposed, but I want them to feel what I felt. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, as if measuring how far I was willing to go. I might know someone, he said finally, a federal forensic accountant. She owes me a favor. Her name was Rachel. Late 40s, sharp, quiet, but lethal with numbers. The kind of person who lived for unraveling financial schemes. She spent the next 2 weeks dissecting everything. Then came a call. Daniel, Rachel said, it's worse than we thought. I sighed. How bad? Marcus isn't just stealing her money. He's been laundering funds from multiple women through fake investment deals for years. He's got offshore real estate, gold holdings, even cryptocurrency shells. This isn't a one-time scam. He's running an entire operation. And Emily, she's listed on some of these documents as a corporate partner. Legally, she'll take part of the fall if this explodes. My hands went cold. He's setting her up as a fall girl. Rachel nodded through the video call. Exactly. For the first time, I truly realized how deep the betrayal went. Emily hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She had gambled everything. Our house, our history, her own future, on a man who was preparing to ruin her too. It was greed. Greed so blinding that she never saw the trap Marcus built for her. I paced my apartment for hours that night. Anger, grief, confusion, all of it clashed inside me. But something else began to rise in my chest. Resolve. I wasn't going to let Marcus walk away. And even after everything, I couldn't let Emily destroy herself like this. Not entirely. She would feel the consequences. But I would give her a choice she never gave me. I called Ethan and Rachel. It's time. They both nodded. We were ready to light the match. The morning of the trap, the sky was heavy with rain clouds, as if the world itself knew something was coming. Rachel worked every angle with surgical precision. She had prepared a full forensic file, bank records, offshore transfers, shell companies, email evidence, phone logs. Everything Marcus had done was documented, lined up like dominoes ready to fall. The plan was simple but dangerous. I wasn't just going after Marcus. I was going to confront Emily. One last time, not as her husband, but as the man who finally saw her for who she had become. Ethan arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a high-rise office downtown that belonged to one of his contacts. Quiet, secure, private. Emily thought she was coming to finalize some remaining divorce paperwork. She didn't know what was waiting for her. I sat in the conference room, my hands clenched tight. My heart hammered in my chest as the elevator chimed. The door opened. Emily stepped in wearing a cream-colored dress, designer purse in hand, looking every bit the woman she had become. Polished, distant, confident. She barely looked at me as she sat down. You have 5 minutes, Daniel. I'm very busy. I studied her for a long moment. It felt surreal, like I was staring at a ghost wearing my wife's face. You want to stay for this, I said calmly. At that moment, Rachel entered, carrying a thick file. She set it on the table and slid it toward Emily. What is this? Emily frowned. Rachel spoke calmly, like a surgeon delivering a diagnosis. Documentation. Every financial transaction Marcus has conducted using your accounts. Offshore transfers. Illegal laundering. Fraud. And your own legal exposure as his listed partner. Emily's face paled. What are you talking about? I didn't authorize. Yes, you did, Rachel interrupted, flipping to the signed contracts. Your signature. Multiple times. Whether you read what you were signing or not, that's irrelevant. You're exposed. Emily's voice trembled slightly. Marcus handled all of that. He said that you were protected. Rachel finished coldly. You're not. The color drained from Emily's face as she scanned the pages, her eyes darting back and forth. I spoke for the first time in minutes. My voice was low but steady. You trusted him, Emily. You handed him everything. And now you're standing on the edge of a federal indictment. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know. Yes, you did, I whispered. Maybe not every detail, but you knew enough. Her lip quivered. Why are you doing this? You could have just let it go. You're bitter. You're trying to ruin me. I felt a strange calm come over me. You already ruined yourself, Emily. I'm just showing you the truth. At that moment, Ethan entered with 2 federal agents. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The lead agent spoke firmly. Ms. Reynolds, based on the evidence provided, you're facing multiple charges: financial fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering. Emily gasped, her voice cracking. No, this wasn't me. Marcus did this. Arrest him. The agent shook his head. We will, but you're listed as an accomplice, unless you cooperate fully and testify. Her hands trembled as she stared down at the papers. Testify, she whispered. Yes, Rachel said softly. You have one chance to help yourself. You turn on Marcus. You give the government everything you know. Otherwise, you'll go down with him. The silence was suffocating. I could see the storm inside her. The walls were closing in. The money, the freedom, the lavish lifestyle, all of it dissolving like smoke. I spoke one last time. You tried to erase me, Emily. After everything we built, you threw me aside like I never existed. But even now, I'm giving you a choice. You can cooperate, save yourself from prison, or you can sink with him. Her tears finally broke free. I never wanted this, she whispered, but even she didn't believe her own words. You did, I said. You just didn't expect it to come crashing down. The agents handed her a document. Decide quickly, one of them said flatly. Time is limited. Emily stared at the paper, her hands trembling. Her world, the one she traded our marriage for, was crumbling in real time. And I sat there quietly, watching the woman I once loved come face to face with the weight of her choices. But this wasn't over yet, because Marcus didn't know what was coming for him. Emily agreed to cooperate, not because of guilt, but because of survival. In the following days, she met with the federal investigators, giving them everything: account access, secret conversations, emails Marcus had sent, and the private instructions he thought were deleted. She burned him to save herself. Even in betrayal, her instincts were always self-preserving. While the agents prepared the sting, I stayed in the background, watching, waiting. The man who tried to steal my life was about to get what he deserved. The agents worked fast. They needed Marcus alive and cornered before he could vanish like he had done to his previous victims. Every hour that passed risked him slipping through the cracks. We didn't have much time. The sting operation was set for Friday morning. Marcus was scheduled to meet with an international banking contact in a luxury hotel downtown. The final move before transferring the last of Emily's fortune offshore. Everything was in place. Rachel, Ethan, and I sat together at a nearby surveillance van as the agents took position inside the hotel lobby. I stared at the monitors. My heart pounded as I watched Marcus stroll into the building like a man without a care in the world. Expensive suit, designer watch, and that arrogant grin he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. He sat at the table with his contact. The final account papers were on the table. Ethan leaned forward. He's going for the last wire. Rachel's voice was cold. As soon as he hit send, they move. I gripped the armrest tightly as the seconds crawled. Marcus typed on his tablet, inputting authorization codes. The money, nearly $7 million, was seconds away from disappearing into black holes of offshore banks. And then, the agents moved. Marcus Reed, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The lobby erupted in shouting. Marcus barely had time to register what was happening before agents slammed him against the glass wall. His tablet hit the floor, screen shattering. His face went pale. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Pure, unfiltered fear. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists as agents recited his rights. He looked around desperately, as if searching for an exit that no longer existed. And then his eyes landed on me, watching through the van's monitor. For a moment, his mouth moved, like he wanted to scream something. But no sound came. The predator had become prey. Hours later, the news broke across every local channel. Prominent financial advisor arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. His entire empire unraveled in days. Victims came forward from across the country. Elderly widows, divorcees, people who had trusted him, who he had drained. Federal prosecutors called it one of the most sophisticated long-con fraud rings they had ever seen. He was charged with multiple federal offenses, enough to ensure he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Marcus Reed, or Marcus Reed Elson, was finished. And Emily? Her cooperation spared her prison time. But the price was brutal. The government seized nearly all her remaining assets. The house was repossessed. The cars, the jewelry, the bank accounts, all liquidated to pay restitution to Marcus's many victims. Her name was ruined. Her reputation gone. She was left broke, alone, publicly humiliated. The $10 million inheritance that she traded everything for vanished. Weeks later, she requested to meet me. I almost didn't go, but something inside me needed to hear it. To see her, not for closure, but for understanding. We met at a small diner on the edge of town. A far cry from the lavish restaurants she once flaunted Marcus through. She looked thinner, exhausted, haunted. The pride in her eyes was gone. She stared down at her coffee cup for a long time before speaking. I was stupid, she whispered. I said nothing. I thought I deserved more. That I was trapped. That you were holding me back. Still, I remained silent. Her voice cracked. I didn't see what Marcus really was until it was too late. And by then, I'd already burned everything. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I lost everything, Daniel. I finally spoke, softly but firmly. No, Emily. You gave it away. Her lip trembled. I never wanted to hurt you. Not like this. I let out a bitter exhale. You didn't just hurt me. You tried to erase me. For money. For lies. And now you're here. Not because you want my forgiveness, but because there's no one else left. She broke down into sobs. The woman who once handed me divorce papers with cold indifference now sat across from me, shattered. But even as I watched her fall apart, something strange stirred in me. Not hate, not revenge, pity. This wasn't redemption. Not yet, but it was the first flicker of truth. And as I stood up to leave, I said one final thing. You made your choices, Emily. Now you live with them. Months passed. The storm had settled. The wreckage remained. Marcus sat in federal custody, awaiting trial that would likely end with decades behind bars. More victims came forward with each passing week. His scam spanned across multiple states, leaving a trail of broken lives. Emily faded from the headlines, but not from my mind. I returned to work slowly. My old life, though shattered, offered me a strange kind of peace. The apartment I once hated became a place of quiet, a place where I could finally breathe. But healing wasn't instant. It never is. One rainy afternoon, as fall crept into the city, Ethan called me. Dan, he said softly, I thought you should know. Emily's working at a small accounting firm downtown, barely making ends meet. I closed my eyes for a moment. She's lucky she's not in prison. Yeah, Ethan replied, but life handed her a sentence anyway. We both sat in silence. She filed for bankruptcy last week, Ethan added quietly. Everything's gone. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger. Just emptiness. She had betrayed me. She had nearly destroyed herself. And now, she was paying a price that no court could fully measure. About a month later, fate crossed our paths one final time. I was at the grocery store, picking up coffee and eggs when I saw her, standing in line ahead of me, holding a few cans of soup and a cheap loaf of bread. She looked smaller somehow. Her once perfect hair was tied back hastily. The designer handbags and jewelry were long gone. She wore a simple jacket, the kind she never would have glanced at before. She hadn't noticed me. For a brief moment, I considered walking away, avoiding the confrontation entirely. But then, as if sensing my presence, she turned. Our eyes met. She froze. Daniel, she whispered. I nodded faintly. Emily. There was a long pause between us. The hum of the checkout counter, the beeps of scanned items, and the quiet shuffle of bags were the only sounds in the background. I never thought I'd see you again, she said quietly, voice trembling. Neither did I replied calmly. Her eyes filled with tears. She swallowed hard. I was wrong about everything. I didn't answer. Not immediately. She continued, her voice breaking. You didn't deserve any of it. The divorce. The way I treated you. I was so blind, so selfish. I let greed destroy everything we built. Her hands trembled as she held her small grocery bag. I've lost everything. Everyone. There's no one left, Daniel. For a moment, I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman who once handed me divorce papers like it was a business deal. This was someone stripped bare by her own choices. A woman who fell for the illusion of money. A woman who tried to erase me from her life. And yet, somehow, in her fall, there was something human again. Vulnerability, regret, pain. I took a deep breath. I won't lie to you, Emily. What you did broke me. It nearly destroyed my life. But you also destroyed yours. And you're the one who has to live with that. She nodded, tears silently falling. But I do hope, I continued softly, that you find a way to rebuild. Not for me. Not for us. For yourself. She covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. I'm so sorry, she whispered again. I wish I could undo it. I shook my head gently. What's done is done. And then I did something neither of us expected. I I stepped forward and placed a small wad of cash in her hand, enough to cover the groceries and a little more. Not out of pity, not out of guilt, but as the final piece of closure. The final thread cut. Her eyes widened. Daniel, I can't. It's not charity, Emily, I interrupted softly. It's peace. She sobbed harder, but nodded, gripping the bills like a lifeline. I walked out of that store into the cool autumn air, breathing deeply. For the first time in what felt like years, the weight on my chest lifted. I had lost everything I thought mattered. But in losing it, I found something more powerful. Freedom, peace, and redemption. The end.